Okay, good morning and welcome to another live today. We're going to talk about the Senate inquiry because Claire from Carers and Advocates Australia was there. And we're going to talk about the reforms as well. There's still a bit of confusion and uncertainty regarding that. So welcome, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's fine. Is Lisa there or?
No,
No, okay, that's all
not
right.
yet.
I was hoping to have Lisa as like a participant from NDIS. The Senate inquiry, I watched the second day and I thought it went quite well. What was your opinions of the Senate inquiry to the NDIS reforms?
I I think that perhaps
You there?
can you hear me?
Yep.
I think they could have had a broader mix of disabilities and maybe more participants and maybe parents and spouses of. But I think that um, that it was collaborative from the point of view of DROs and peak bodies. They certainly had given it a good look, and they had uh, their own legal advice as to how they felt about it. I, I think that some of the amendments that are made now.
Are you just cutting
Got to.
out? Sorry.
Are you?
You're,
Hang on a moment, and I'll see what I can do. Hang on. Right. Is that better?
no, it's worse. Just go back to the way you were. Yeah, maybe if it's Bluetooth, you maybe need to stay close to the computer or something. Can you hear me?
Right.
There
That
you
is
go.
that.
That's
Okay.
better. That's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was one lady there who facilitated a few public meetings, and she was paid by the DSS. I can't remember her name, but she made a statement saying that no one from the NDIS has come up and said to her that their funding's been cut. And I found that to be untrue because I've heard from quite a few people that their funding's been cut already with that, with the reforms going through.
I think that that's been something that's been a period of time and to do with the reforms now. I think
Yeah.
that that's been a bit of the narrative, certainly for the last few years. And I know we had Minister Short, and I know we certainly had a lot of similar issues. I think it's been an ongoing issue, but that's just, yes, I think part of the reform is to save money, but I don't think it's to cut people's plans. I think they're two separate things.
Okay. Yeah, because that wasn't very clear when she made that statement. Um, now, so with the reforms, I know that I've expressed quite a few times that we need to have a national register of all support workers, especially independent support workers. Has that gone through that national registry?
No, they're waiting until June for the registration task force to hand over to Minister Shorten. Um, I wasn't really clear as to what the recommendations were for so they're not going to register absolutely everybody and have an enrolment thing. Their recommendation was that they change the definition of disability support, and that would mean somebody basically with direct hands-on support, and that didn't apply to people like Kmart, Woolies, places like that, or gardeners. I wasn't sure. I wasn't very clear as to where they would be going with Allied Health. Allied Health, who are registered through APRA, felt they were already registered. I think that they would also, in my opinion, need to be registered, because it's very difficult for a participant, their families, um, to manage any complaints for Allied Health with a body like APRA, and it needs to be something that access, and where something can actually be done if there's an issue, and that there is a degree of conformity. Certainly for hands-on providers, we need to have a form of registration. I know that this is something that there's been very large pushback on in the disability community. Well, the most vocal disability advocates, at least. Um, I don't understand why. I mean, I do understand that to have control and to have people, I like this person, I'd like them to come and do this, as any of us would. But unfortunately, I think that degree of regulation, it's been tested really over the last 11 years, hasn't it? And it's been found wanting. And it's the
Yeah.
same with care or any other system as such. You know, we have to have licenses for driving. There are regulations for electricity and all sorts of things, because there's always somebody who goes and electrocutes themselves, or drives into someone else. So we have to have regulations for safety and standardisation.
I think there's some, because I know there's one article put out yesterday by George Telopoulos, saying that people won't be able to go to Bunnings. So this is the thing that sort of concerns me, is that people are confusing businesses such as Bunnings and Kmart as service providers. They're not service providers. They're not support workers. They're businesses. They're retailers. So I think that's a deliberate, in my opinion, that's a deliberate thing that some people are trying to do, is confuse that argument against having a national register of support workers by stating businesses like Bunnings and Kmart and Woolies as service providers when they're not.
I I think I think it's two separate issues. I think the first issue is provider, and the other thing is what is a disability support, a reasonable and necessary support. Everyone, however they're managed, is true. I to get best value, but I think perhaps in some of those conversations, perhaps there's some misunderstanding as to what is a reasonable support.
Well,
Some of those places that they're talking about going to.
Well, I did an interview a few months ago with a woman who had a technician come in to fix up a barcode scanner, which is the same one that I use now, because she's blind as well. And she said, so he needs, is he a support worker? Well, no. He is providing the support, but he's not actually a support worker. He's a businessman. He's coming in doing repairs. Then she went on, well, do gardeners need to have, insurances and all that sort of stuff? And I said, Well, it depends on who you want in your house, but we're talking about support workers, and I think what the reforms need to do is clearly label what is a support worker, what is a service provider, what is a business.
And what are you allowed to spend funding on?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Um, so I do support a national register of independent support workers. Now, these people, anyone can get an ABN number and become a support worker. The independent support workers don't have to have a working with children's check, a police check. They don't have to have proof of insurances, first aid, CPR. They can come straight into a support worker's role, earn $55 an hour for 5 hours, 8 hours a day for 5 days a week, which comes to $114,500. Now that's not bad money.
Well, becoming a support worker, becoming a boutique and independent, slightly somebody that drives somebody to the shop. Are we talking about somebody that comes in and does some cleaning? Are we talking about somebody that comes in and provides high intensity supports? It might be, trachea. It might be um, complex care has become, because the NDIS has expanded so much, things like mental illness. And there's disability, and people say that, but I don't know that if people understand how vast that is and how those participants have every right somebody come to them when they fought for their funding and to be cared for, that guide and able to provide them with the right supports. And
Oh, you just faded out.
they've
Yeah.
correctional facilities, and they have issues that they need assistance with, but then the provider is unaware of their history and is not able to provide the service. They know about it, and B, that's not really what they do. So we need to know what is the support. Um,
You're just fading
have
out
to
there.
occur.
You're just fading out, Claire. So, um, look, as far as support workers, you know, there needs to be a clear definition. Um, and we need to make sure all these independent support workers um, have the right qualifications. You just can't bring somebody in with no qualifications, no experience, and expect to train them on the job. And if you have an episode, if somebody has an episode, how they're supposed to communicate what kind of assistance that you need. So, I think we need to have certain amount of qualifications for our support workers.
I think we need to have specialisations as well.
I think
Uh,
so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think everybody will want to do um, certain aspects when it gets into more high intensity. I think that, some people just want to maybe deal with people with neurodivergence, or they like disability. I think it needs to be um, certainly with intellectual disability, there are specialisations and people there that know how to deal with complex behaviours, and those people are absolutely worth their weight in gold, and I don't feel that we give them enough credit.
Absolutely. No, I think um, well, you know, you and I spoke before about, you know, the supports that support workers provide, and how much we rely on them and how much we appreciate them, and that's completely understated all the time. They're an integral role in our lives, and we need to acknowledge that. Um, One thing I did want to
They can
ask,
be, and I don't think they can be. You can appreciate something if it doesn't fit right. So
no,
it's important.
yes, and we need to be able to move on from someone if they're not providing the supports that we need. Um, I spoke to a few other people the last few days about under the reforms, what happens if we have an assessment that we don't like and we feel that we need to appeal that decision. Is that appeals process still going to be available under the reforms?
I believe so. I believe there is some discussion about amendments going forward, and the Senate comes back with. But I don't believe that it's meant to be punitive. I believe that some of the changes in there certainly. If they're asking for information for people, and when you have the 90 days, I think there have been some people that just haven't responded and have gone dark, kind of thing. And I think some people, because we've not known where people are, perhaps uh, perhaps it's a way of checking on, and we literally don't have information and we need it. And the NDIA, they haven't been great at, you get this through phone, and then if you haven't answered it, then you've missed the call from the NDIS, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think that the communication needs to be better, in order to facilitate that. But I do think there needs to be better dialogue and better communication. I think with the navigators, the idea you just need to have a little bit of patience, and there's a hell of a lot of dialogue. I know, go onto the NDIS site, and you can register. You can sign up to have involvement in the participation groups, and that they will let you know. There's a newsletter every fortnight, and they will let people know which group and which focus group to you, so that you can have your 2 cents worth in growing all the little rules that will actually make up the working body of how things go forward.
So with the navigators, are they going to be specialised in certain areas?
We don't know. I think we're still making it up as we go along. I would
No.
hope so. I know. I know. If you get hold of a plan, they are amazing. I've never come across one that isn't. But it is difficult. There is huge diversity in disability. There is huge diversity within each disability as well.
Yeah.
And so to have the full range, it's for everybody. I think that perhaps you're right there. If you have, well, my speciality is high intensity, or my speciality is intellectual disability, or I do deaf and blind, or cerebral palsy, or the ways that they break it up, and maybe they'll have people that actually have some understanding around those things would be really good.
I think so. I mean, I've struggled over the years with NDIA staff not knowing the difference between being blind and vision impaired, which
Mm.
is a basic knowledge thing. So, um, to have a navigator who specialises in that area, I think would be a huge benefit, a huge plus. and a
Yeah,
huge asset to everyone's plan.
yeah, I think so. Because otherwise it's going to be a pointless exercise. I think, I hope they up their training in a lot of areas, and I think one of the things I'd like to see is training for participants. I try and but also say in the health service,
Well, yeah,
fortune of having to go to hospital and they haven't got a clue.
no, no, I've come across that a few times. Um, and having nursing staff there whose um, English is not their first language and they really struggle and you can't understand them, and in the meantime you're in a lot of pain, and so having somebody there with a disability with complex needs and not being able to communicate is going to be a huge issue.
It's an issue when you're doing personal care and bathroom stuff, because they don't understand that this person can't. It's a gravitational thing. There are certain things that are required to happen. Try and explain it to the hospital staff, and oh no, they'll be fine. We'll just put a sheet underneath. It's like, it won't happen that way. Or
Yeah,
you can't take their chair out of the room. That's their legs. It must stay within. It must stay, because when you put it in the storage room, if it when you found it eventually again, if it's banged or bashed around, that doesn't work particularly well. I think uh, I think is an exciting area for everyone. We can be discussing things like health equity and like other government departments that we go and visit in our day-to-day lives
mm,
actually being accessible for people.
yeah, and
And
mental
that's
health.
a great way.
Yeah, well, mental health seems to be a huge issue for some service providers and support workers for their clients. Um, the government seems to be struggling with that for some reason.
I don't think they understand. A lot of emergency departments have become like psych wards and homeless shelters. And I think they've dumped everything they freaking well could out of their bucket into the NDIS bucket. And I think I don't want national supports being all about those services and not also about accessibility. If we have
Yeah,
if we have healthy people with good access to health supports, then they're cheaper to look after. Health equity is a great thing. If we have an accessible society, then it's independent.
well, one of the big concerns for me too is the state governments. Since the NDIS came in, all the state governments dropped their disability services and pushed everyone into the NDIS. Now you have people who have an acquired disability stuck in hospitals way longer than they need to be because they're there until they get funding from the NDIS so they can go out, get the home modifications done, get the supports that they need. So that gap between the hospital and the NDIS needs to be filled by a state-run disability service. What do you think?
I think also in the cases where, from a provider's point of view, a participant that has to go into hospital, um, the hospital's not very good at working with their providers or their support coordinators. They'll tend to come in and try and recreate the wheel, or not listen to um, uh, the requests or needs of the participant. Or one of the things that is very dangerous, their speech therapist will come in and removed from their medication.
Well, that's one of the things that people have mentioned to me is that when they take their clients to an emergency department, the staff, the hospital staff talk to the support worker, not the person with the disability, and it's not the support worker's role to, how should I put it, to take control of the person with the disability and make decisions.
No, totally agree with you. Yeah.
So there needs to be an education there, but for people who have an accident and they go to hospital and just say they're become a paraplegic, until they get funding from the NDIS, they're stuck in hospital because there's no stopgap services between the hospital and the NDIS because the state-run services were cancelled when the NDIS came in. Now they're talking of having a stopgap service provider, state-run one. So now they've got to reinvent the wheel, and that's going to take time.
I don't think they need a state run one. I think there are enough providers to be talking to people. South Australia, decided to become a provider, and we seem to shove them everywhere. Like wanted broccoli on a dinner plate. We've got people shove Regency Green, St Margaret's, Hampstead, and the Repat, where it's sort of like a no man's land. I think it would be better, if those people had choice whether they wanted to be under a state system or whether they
just sort
even
of
for domestic. We don't have any crisis care for people at all, other than the hospital last resort provider.
And that's the thing that I'm trying to get through is that between the hospital and the NDIS, there's sort of like a no man's land where services aren't being provided. So people are stuck in hospital or being moved to aged care facilities until they can get onto the NDIS and get the services that they need. So, do those, the reforms, how is that going to sort of bridge that gap?
It needs to. Certainly, as part of the Royal Commission, they discussed such things, and they also appropriate housing, and they also discussed things like women with disabilities. The other issue would be the fact that we don't have enough of a workforce. Our workforce is failing. Our workforce is not trained well enough to do high needs, complex care. And we're not supposed to be there as babysitters. We're supposed to be there to enhance. So I think there are a lot of things that need to gaps that need to be filled there, Jeff. A lot of it, from my perspective, is wishful thinking. My big thing is health equity is very important to me. I would love to see healthcare instead of hospital care, because we need to have a healthcare system, and the systems don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
Disservice. And I think some of these things that we've been seeing in society, certain acts of violence towards women, it's well known that there is a significant addiction and mental health links there. And I think that, the one of the ways forward in attending to those things is that we get our mental health care right, that it's done in a compassionate and active.
Yeah. I just faded out again. Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day, Claire, about the mental health issues, and the old system where you got to visit a counsellor up to 10 times a year. And for some people, that's not enough. It needs to be twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever works for that between the counsellor and the client. So there needs to be more emphasis on mental health.
Or they need to have it integrated into their daily lives.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
You don't get to be blind, for an hour once a fortnight.
No, exactly. Yeah,
So
I understand.
there are very very varying, and certainly with people with intellectual disability, I think that's one area that it's not very well understood. They don't want to see group homes go, and they don't want to see their workshop facilities closed, and a lot of them don't want to integrated into the education system.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's up to discuss different groups is they want.
well, I think some people like living in group homes, and if that's what they want, well, let them have it. I say, if they want to be on their own, help them be independent.
Mm. Different people and different disabilities have different needs, and like everybody else, those needs change throughout the journey of life.
Exactly. And do these new reforms actually reflect that things can change really quickly for some people?
I think so. I think so. I'm quite hopeful about it. I wasn't as about it, but I do believe that this is a massive exercise in change management. It's not like just moving house, which we know even when we move house, how big a thing that is, and trying to get our phone addresses changed. So this is a really, really big exercise, and it's just going to take time. And I do think that what out there is looking positive, and I don't think people should be um, driving themselves to hysteria. Please, please look after yourselves and
Yeah.
please inform yourself. And there are lots of participation groups. The NDIS is on their website. Get involved because we need their voices as a part of. We need to be getting the information like you are in front of people, so that that's what supported decision making is about, and we all have a responsibility.
Yeah.
To, we put them in the position where they can make their own decisions, and then that they are able to elevate their voices into this new thing that's being built around us as we live. And we're
Yeah.
creating history here. We should be positive about that.
So that's one of the things that I'm getting really frustrated with is that there's certain people out there deliberately alarming and distressing people with half truths and um, not presenting the facts in an unbiased manner. Um, if you want to put the information out, put the information out. Don't put your own spin on it and scare people. It's doing more harm than good. Unfortunately, there's some people out there who are in a role of representation doing that, and that's the wrong thing to do. Bring the information out, let people make their own informed decisions. That's why I started this channel, and that's why I wanted to talk to you today. Was about with the reforms is so people can make up their own minds.
I think that that's a very honourable thing to.
Well,
with disabilities haven't been taught how to do that, and I think that it's a huge service. When we closed institutions, we didn't give enough preparation for people, and I find it when you have people saying you need lived experience. Well, I have lived experience in neurodivergence and living experience. However, I wouldn't dare speak instead of somebody else.
You wouldn't push your agenda onto somebody else.
Well, no, because you need to have consent to do so, and you need to elevate their voice, their opinions, not your own. Or otherwise it's not. We've got to start forward here. And if people have ideas or no, then not, don't think for a minute that your ideas aren't valid and that you can't be a part of this, and that it's not a positive thing. You know, we haven't heard much really about our over 65s, and I think certainly those ones that have high needs and physical disabilities. I've concerned them because of the lack of equipment and ability to be cared for in a home. I think my mother's 80, and she, you don't know who you're going to get sent, when you're going to get sent, if they're going to speak English, if they know why they're there. Just turn up and I don't know even why I'm here. This is an opportunity that we really must get, and I think we have a great opportunity going forward to do so. And the more podcasts that you see out there, particularly like yours, where you're from a grassroots perspective, I speak more sort of ideology and philosophy, and on my podcast, and give sort of more of an opinion based on others, whereas you're doing a searching, fact finding, you're walking more with people, and I think that has a great deal of merit.
I think so. There's not too many podcasts out there that focus on grassroots, because all the stuff that I go on the Facebook pages, I go on LinkedIn, I go on all the other social media platforms, and the things that people scream about the most is the inconsistency, and they don't understand how things work. So the NDIA and those representatives of the NDIA aren't doing a very good job to meet the grassroots people.
I think some of that is ability community where there's not a lot of cohesion, or and there's a lot of, well, you can't say that this way, you mustn't, exclusion of certain disability groups and certain parents of or families of, in some cases, not in all. There are some absolutely people that make sure they elevate you and inform you well. But I certainly think that providers need to be assisting participants with training about what the NDIS actually is. There's a huge issue out there, misinformation, but also because I don't think they know, and I think they believe they know, and they don't.
Yeah, you just cut out again there, Claire.
And it's very complicated. The complication, it needs to be simplified for people.
Yeah,
the things
absolutely.
yeah.
They have things brought out and put out in a way that um, people at the bottom, well, I'd say at the bottom of the ladder, but grassroots people can understand. There's some of the stuff that's come out through the NDIA, and I've gone through it 4 or 5 times. And I go, what the hell are they trying to say? It's just governmental word salad, and it's got to stop.
Yes, it needs to be something that everybody being out an easy read now and then. Um,
You just faded out again there.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable that they haven't trained people what the NDIS is, how to access it, how things work. I think the best advocacy that you can give somebody is education.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that it's not getting through to the grassroots people. Now, like I said, I've talked to a lot of people over the last 18 months, 2 years, and it's just the way it's phrased. And if you don't phrase something properly, then you've got no chance of getting any assistance. Um, and another thing that people complain to me about is somebody will get funding to get something that they need, but a person with very similar circumstances is refused funding. And they're saying,
Down
why
to
are
the
they getting
quality.
it?
That's due to the quality of some of the reports that go forward as well. Standardizing that and saying, well, okay, what is it you satisfied with what's been put forward? Can I contest it? Because there's just so it's just been chaos, hasn't it, Jeff? You don't know. You sort of throw a heap forward and hope that it's right. I've seen some very good functional assessments, and I've
Yeah, you just cut out again, Claire.
they want
There you go.
the quality of those reports going forward that we don't really know what they want will determine the outcome. And we look at the NDIA and we blame them, but let's also have a look at the people providing the reports. We don't really know. We don't have we don't really have it standard.
Well,
Sorry, that's the Labrador.
yep. But can you have a standard report when, sometimes people have, yeah, they might have a similar disability, but completely different needs and requirements. So,
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. But you need to. We want to know these things about you. So a functional assessment, great in some instances, but they're very, very difficult to ascertain if you're talking about anything um, like medically or day to day, or understanding, well, what level of care is that? How many hours does that actually
yeah. Well,
be?
um,
And things like that are often left out of that equation.
well, where I live, there's a woman there. She's a physio, and she does such a fantastic job of doing reports. Um, there was a 12-month waiting list. Then there was like another 2 or 3 months for her to write the report. She's no longer doing it anymore, and the other people around town doing the same thing, they're not very good. When they submit a report, it's quite often knocked back. So where do we get?
Yeah, I've intervened between somebody doing a report and the participant, um, and in that scenario, I didn't know, because the NDIA aren't psychic. They didn't know that this particular participant didn't have a working bathroom, had pressure sores that needed clinical attention, didn't know that his driveway was 1 kilometre long or that he lived quite remotely.
Yep.
These things are important. How the report is very important.
It is, and to have someone who does an exceptionally good job at writing reports, and then they get overworked, so they retire, they get out of it, and then the other people who are still doing it aren't very good at what they do. Then it's the participant of the NDIS who actually suffers. We need to. There's still that sort of grassroots level problem that's still going on, and it's been ignored for 6-7 years.
Yeah, I think it's really in the disability community to come together, and we've got to work it out. I think that, like, I don't know if you know the phrase 52 card pickup,
Yeah.
You throw all the cards and and you've got to just start again. And
Yeah.
it is a bit like that.
Yeah. When I first went to the NDIS and everything I applied for, 100% of it was knocked back. And I just couldn't understand why. And everyone kept saying to me, it's like building a plane while you're trying to fly it. No, it's not good enough. It's we've created this whole industry, this whole system of supporting people with disabilities. It shouldn't have been brought out until all these things were overcome.
I agree.
I think when this was trial, I think the trial was not long enough, and I don't think the trial net was nowhere near wide enough. I think the trial should have went on for an extra 2 or 3 years, and they had a wider net.
I agree with you. Yeah.
So what else was in the reforms that people haven't spoke about yet?
Well, I think the next stage is still everyone's. So the has passed the House of Representatives. It's going to go hopefully through the Senate at the end of gosh, I can't remember whether it's this month or next month now, just having a moment. But then if it passes through the Senate, then it gets made into law. And then inside that framework, we then got to put all the rules and things. Now that'll be the working cogs that make the engine work, really. And there's a lot of there, and it's all sort of up in the air. So we've got to think about, well, what does need to change? Well, so we've talked about complexity, about staff and safety and security, and training, competency and quality. And we've talked about mental health and focuses in different areas being a good thing, and about the hospital system working with healthcare and working with the NDIS. Because what happens when you go to ministers in the States, minister, and you say, ladies in wheelchairs have difficulty pap smears or gynecological obstetric, or people with mobility issues have problems accessing, say, bone scans, CT scans, if at all.
Yep.
That's a disability issue. You need to go and speak to the federal minister. That doesn't serve in a first world country that everybody doesn't access.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Uh, uh, over the last couple of weeks, I've been up with a heart problem, and I went for a heart scan. Um, and when I sat down, I actually rolled back into the groove of this table where I had to lay down for the CT scan of my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I was laying there, and I was thinking, how in the hell can a person in a wheelchair get from that position onto the table? There's no hoist, there's no nothing. So I know what you mean, and we do need to address it.
Those sorts of things, yeah.
Yeah.
Because healthability is something that is important to people with their to have the best that you can do. Personally, the encounters that I've had that I've found quite distressing. I'd like it addressed sooner rather than later, but I'd like a lot of things. And I think the foundational supports and how is that going to work for
You just cut out again, Claire.
kids? It hasn't been good enough to attend to those kids, let alone having diversity than that. A lot of kids with disabilities would just slot in no problem, and other children are going to need you know a little bit more help.
What about the point system that um, certain people were talking about? I watched Senator Steele John's participated in his Zoom thing, and he was saying that there's going to be a point system. If you don't have enough points, you'll be off the NDIS. Is that correct?
I think Senator Jordan maybe needs to. There is a percentage thing when you do certain assessments that, like the HUDAS, where you do have a percentage of disability based on your function. I
Yeah,
can
but
only assume that that's what he was referring to.
well, I think him and George were saying that if you don't have enough points, you'll be off the NDIS, and I was struggling to understand what they were talking about.
I think it's something that people in the community, we all need to understand that the NDIS has grown very quickly, and it has grown to a point that it is gaining on defence and is bigger than Medicare. We live in a country, and we need to understand that as a community we all everybody pays tax. If you buy anything, you pay. Everybody pays tax. There's no soul that doesn't pay it. But we need to really think about and providers that are doing the wrong thing, either they're over servicing or providing services that are not a correct support, and encouraging people. Some participants also can be naughty. Why not? Why should we all go along with the tarring of the brush of low expectations? Are we not as bright as everybody else? Why can't we do the wrong thing as well? We're not children and innocent. Of course we can. But I don't think that
You just faded it again,
we need
Claire.
to ensure we need to protect those people that we are there to protect, and we need to ensure that people that need funding are getting it, because it has grown far faster than we anticipated, and we still haven't managed at any price to give every single person on this scheme or time determination and the best shot at life that as anyone else.
Yeah, because I heard Bill Shorten say that the NDIS is growing at a rate of 20%, and they actually forecasted 8%.
Well, I think part of that is the state everything and not having definitions. We've just discussed it. We don't have a definition. What is the role of a support worker? What are we defining as a provider? We haven't answered those questions. Of course, it has. We're just sort of working it out. Well, we're not working it out as we're going along. We're just fudging it. And so this is
Yeah.
going to be thorough, and it needs to be, so that those people that need it get it, and it's there forever and ever. Because they are the unfortunate realities. People that
I,
respond to the NDIS, they've committed fraud, and people
yeah.
just about kicking people off. I think that would be rare. Very, it should be
Well,
about. If they haven't responded, let's check on them.
well,
And where are they okay?
well, I think the NDIA should be doing like, because I spoke to a lot of people the last few months, and I know there's a support worker here where I live where they provide one-on-one supports for 12 hours a day. So a 12-hour shift for 3 people. How in the hell you can get 36 hours into 24, I don't know, but they're getting away with it. So, maybe there needs to be an auditing process from the NDIA to come up and do an on-the-spot audit of independent support workers and service providers.
Yes.
I know when I apply for stuff, I always ring up and get permission first. I just don't go out and buy something. Um, yeah, I've heard some horror stories over the last 12 months of people not doing the right thing, um, especially with by participants and support workers. But they are a minority. Bill Shorten said there was $4 billion of funding going to organised crime.
I
Well,
think
if they
that's
not,
probably modest. I mean, there's drug trafficking, there's human trafficking, to do with immigration,
well,
because there's lots going on, and I don't know that they'll ever get to the end of it, but they do need to stop it.
absolutely, and the only way they can do it is to, in my opinion, and I could be absolutely wrong on this, is the NDIA do on the spot audits. No 24-hour notice, no 48-hour notice, on the spot audits. And if they fail, then they're held accountable.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I think they certainly need to. Sometimes they need to be able to cite people, especially if they are at risk. Where okay, that you're not being farmed somewhere, and if somebody's not replying for a long time, that has to be a consideration.
yeah,
What if the
yeah.
participants passed away, and the provider hasn't said so, and that's why they're not replying? It's
Well,
not
that's
all some evil conspiracy. There are some
no,
actual useful things in this that I think we have to get out of our own way.
yeah, no, I agree. I with the NDIA, like last year, November last year, 11,000 records were sold to
Mm.
service providers. Um, Senior management of the NDIA got kickback from Salesforce. They got hospitality, and I think that, in other words, is free holidays. What's happened with that? Nobody's heard anything since early this year about
No. Yeah.
Salesforce and
Yeah.
Salesforce itself. Now, they had a huge problem in the UK where people went to jail. People committed suicide because that software program, which is costing the NDIA $129 million a year, there's basic flaws with that program. What's being done about that? There's a lot of
I think
questions.
certainly they should know with a participant with their plan, they are claiming, at a rate of twice what their funding is. They'll say, "Oh, yes, it is." It's like, "Oh, no, it doesn't." It doesn't. They just go, one
Yeah,
day it's like, there's no money there, and the poor participant had no idea, and some provider's gone to town.
yeah,
And
yeah,
see, a registered provider, we have to charge within the price guide, whereas a unregistered provider, they don't have to check that they've got insurance or training or work
yeah, yeah. No,
to when those things need to be in place. I know there's been some talk about participants doing some training. There is always a degree of that. Can I just give a minute?
you're right.
Lisa, just give me a minute. You all right? All right. Sorry about that.
No, that's right.
So we certainly need to have a way going forward for types of things.
Yeah,
So that those things, because through no fault of their own, people are charged. I knew of a lady who was charged, $7,000 for one day to go and visit a friend, a very expensive visit. Some chap who had 56,000 charged to him by his gardener, and the poor man only had a wee little garden. I thought it was going to be the botanical gardens, but so that's why those things should be in place. And I think there's a lot of information like that wouldn't believe it because we don't think like that. And some of the stories that I think that the government are across, there are reasons why they're trying to do some of these things. So there needs to be some open dialogue as to what we need and what they need, and only a certain amount of co-design before it starts to look like a voice to parliament. We can only go so far in
yeah,
a democracy as to what co-design can mean. We can certainly get stuck in, and I think everybody in this sector needs to have their say. But some of the things they're coming out with I think behind it are extensive and shocking. Particularly with at the end of the day, the person who provides you your experience with the NDIS on a daily basis is your support worker. Who is your ally? All we've got is each other, quite
yeah.
supervised. We're unsupported, and we've got each other, and we need to be a team going forward.
Yeah, it's like I seen one of your posts on LinkedIn the other day how we all need to be treating other with respect and understanding and working together to build a certain outcome that we all need. Unfortunately, there's a few people out there who are deliberately dividing um, our community by putting out false information and half truths.
Well, certainly, and I think there's no stakeholder, no sector of the community that's not have had a go at that. If you're
Yeah,
reading the newspapers, I think the media's getting a few clicks out of our suffering. That's for sure.
yeah,
So we need to make sure that we maintain the trust of the community by when we go forward, that we have that we represent ourselves in a way that we wish to be seen and not diminished. Turn around and say, no, no, there's no fraud. No, no, it's not expensive. No, it's not out of control. It's running fantastic. Thank you. I think that just makes us
Yeah, I think
the greater community want the NDIS. We're proud of it, but I don't think saying things like that. People are concerned that it hurts disability image with some of these stories. I think we're all aware it's a fact of life. These things occur, but I think denying it, I think that serves the image. I think either.
yeah. I, I,
Collaborating with is better.
I think if everyone is just open and transparent, then these things, wouldn't have happened as much.
Totally agree.
You know.
Totally agree.
But yeah, anyway, we've been going on for quite a while. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish, or?
Well, thank you for the work that you do, and for letting. Though I'm on both sides of the fence, but I'll be I'm a support worker, an advocate, and a company CEO. I still get my hands. I still get in there because I think that when get too big for their boots. So it's nice to know and get that support from the participant community that that they see us. We have an issue with some of the mental health claims and things through work cover being more than all the other sectors together. So it's been hard for everybody, and I don't think that's because of being difficult. I think the NDIS is difficult and hurting a lot of people.
Yeah,
And
I do want to talk to you, but I won't do it today. I'll get you on another time to talk about the mental health of support workers and the rate of burnout. It's been concerning to me for a number of years, actually, even prior to the NDIS.
They don't tend to, with funding and things, they forget that some people are 2 to 1, and you do need to have the second person there, or there could be injury, and so the burnout. We've got support staff giving on average 30% extra of free time that's not funded. And that comes to something like, if a modest guess, maybe another 5 billion attached.
Yes,
So
exactly. But that's I won't go into that today because I think that's a story in itself, and we really don't have time to cover it. I want to give it the time that it deserves. So thank you for coming today. I do appreciate your time. Um, I will be in contact with you to talk about the mental health and the burnout rate
I think
amongst.
we're all experiencing it, and one shouldn't forget that a lot of support staff have themselves.
Yes, absolutely. I always tell my support staff that your family comes first. I don't mind stepping back and waiting until they work their own issues out at home, because not all support workers have a husband and wife. There's single parents out there who do support work, and they're fantastic, and they're raising their family on their own. So I think that's really important that we let those support workers know they're just as important, and so are their families.
Well, I think at the moment we need to push forward. Nothing without us, but without all of us. We need to be a cohesive and not a divided community. And I think the next step that we really need to be think of is, do not look back, look forward. Where can people contribute themselves make sure they're well informed, to keep watching your show, and going forward that they can contribute so that the NDIS we have going forward is there.
Absolutely. Well, I might end that there today, Claire. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and I'll be in contact soon.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, well, that was Claire from Carers and Advocates Australia. I've spoken to her, Claire, on and off over the last few months, trying to get some information. There's certain people out there who are pushing their own agenda rather than putting out facts. And for someone who struggles a lot to keep up with the NDIS, I want the facts. And I think there's a lot of other people out there who feel the same way. We want the facts. We don't want other people's agendas. We just want to know what's going on and how we can improve things. All right. I hope that helped a few people. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I just want to thank everyone for joining and listening today. And if you have any topics you want me to cover, or you want me to ask some questions on your behalf, just send me an email at blindadvocate007@gmail.com, or you can contact me through Facebook and LinkedIn, Instagram, and all those other platforms. Okay, thank you.